Hey, this is Margaret, Dexter Realty. Today, it's a great pleasure. I have an expert with me today. His name is Will Title, and he is a financial consultant with IG Wealth. And he is also a father of two, and his absolute passion is to help people, and he's only rivaled only by his entrepreneurial spirit. He has ventured through several of business before he found the perfect blend of his passion with IG Wealth. Today, we're here to talk a little bit about guiding financial planning and financial knowledge for young savers, especially with COVID-19. It is hard, and even though there is all kinds of government relief programs and government incentives, but those are not long-term sustainable. And I think it's a great opportunity that we take a step back and learn some skills and some solid financial knowledge in helping young people to build their wealth because the best time to save is now. The best time to plan is also now. So welcome, Will. So happy to have you here and take it away.
Thank you, Margaret. Well, happy to be here, and thank you again for having me. Of part of the series here, we're going to be talking about a few different opportunities that are in the marketplace, and also for young people that are just getting into creating their own personal net worth and starting to think about financial planning.
Right.
Sort of seeing the opportunity that's out there.
Sorry, when you say young savers or young people, what type of age group would you be planning or talking about or referring to?
Yeah, so for this series today, I'm really just speaking towards the people that are kind of starting out. So they're between the ages of 18 to, let's say, 25 or 26 or something like that, where
Right.
they still kind of have the opportunity to put away a lot of money without having a lot of burdens such as liabilities, credit card debts, stuff like that,
Kids.
and hopefully helping them create
Yeah.
a path forward where they're not taking on debt loads that they don't need to, so that they can really start living up to their full potential and achieving everything that their life has to offer for them.
Oh, I love the sound of that because a lot of time, if you don't start early and you don't plan, then you get caught off guard, and then you look back and it's like, well, how do we go from here?
Exactly. Yeah. And as we were speaking about earlier, I think we both started early. Um, but there's never a point where you can start too early. So creating
Absolutely.
these habits now where you can really instill in yourself the drive, the dedication, and the passion for building up. I always like to tell people every time I meet them, I'm giving you a promotion. You're now the CEO of your own company.
I love
And we
that.
need to look at it that way and just say, okay, even when I'm going through, my daily job, we need to consider, well, is this job providing me with everything that I need? Is it what I want to do? Is it my passion? Is it something that I'm doing in the meantime to where I can do something that I really want to do that's fulfilling later on? And I think that's the key word, is fulfillment, and really finding out what really is fulfilling to you and adds a lot of value to your life, so that you can truly live a happy life that you really would like to.
And I think what you're doing is also empowering the young people in learning how they can plan their life accordingly. Yeah, it's the empowerment.
Exactly, yeah. So why don't we jump into it? I've put together a small capabilities deck for the young savers out there that are eager and have questions, and hopefully I can answer some of those questions and also educate a little bit at the same time. So
I
let's
love
jump
that.
into that.
Thank you. Yeah, please do.
All right, so we got financial guidance for the young savers. So
Hmm.
as we move through, I'm going to go through a quick agenda here. So I'm going to go through a couple little bit of introductions. Margaret, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction on myself. I'm also just going to talk maybe about for 2 seconds about IG Wealth Management, our sort of view and how we look at creating and establishing wealth and creating a living plan for people. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I help. There are several different demographics, if you would, that I really like to focus on. And of course, young savers is a big passion of mine, just to help create, their futures. There's so much opportunity out there. And I think it's really important that they understand what's available to them.
And it's
Then I'm going to go over a
exciting.
few key financial concepts.
Oh, I was gonna
What's
say,
that?
and I was gonna say it's really exciting to see them grow as time goes along.
Yeah.
When they're
Yeah.
young and you help
Yeah.
them, and it's really, really fulfilling to see them grow.
Yeah, once you start achieving a goal and you start putting a plan in place and you start checking all of the boxes on your list, next thing you know, you've accomplished so much in such a short period of time. And you really got to take a step back and just give yourself a pat on the back and say, wow, I am just doing this thing. I'm rocking and rolling, and it's amazing at what you can accomplish if you just create a plan. So that's what we want to talk about today. So
Perfect.
for the key financial concepts, we're going to go over a few things. So one is we're going to look at, I kind of thought, and hopefully the crowd's not too young where they don't know the whole stop, drop, and roll. What happens if you're on fire, right? So I've sort of did a little play on words with that. So the first thing is when we come into a time of crisis like we're in right now through COVID-19, whereas there is a lot of uncertainty, there's also a lot of opportunity for the right people. So the first thing that we
Absolutely.
need to do is stop and we need to assess the situation. And for that, we're going to look at updating our budget. First of all, making sure that we have a budget in place. And second of all, reassessing that budget. From there, we're going to move over into the drop. So we're going to focus on dropping any debt that we might have. I'm going to go through a really quick illustration on something called debt stacking to help people maximize eliminating their debt so that they're able to contribute more towards their savings to ultimately get what they actually want in the end. From there, we're going to finish up the financial concepts with the roll, and we're going to creating that net worth and developing an emergency fund or even an opportunity fund for moving forward. So we're going to roll those payments that we had dropped from our debt into our savings afterwards. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then at the end of it, I'm going to finish up with my process that I take my clients through to make sure that we're not missing anything. We're really achieving that optimal experience.
Well,
So
that
just a
sounds
quick word about
phenomenal. That
IG.
sounds great. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very important to be optimal and making sure that you're maximizing the opportunity and the output that you're capable of putting out. Everybody is capable of amazing things. And I want to make sure that everybody is living up to their full potential. So a few things about IG Wealth Management. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but we are a very large, well-respected company. We've been around for over 90 years, and we actually opened our doors in 1926. We actually have more certified financial planners than any other company in Canada, and we actually plan on keeping it that way. In fact, IG's actually gone on the record that every single one of our consultants and our advisors with IG Wealth Management must have a CFP designation, which is the highest level of financial planning designations that you can actually achieve. So we're really committed to providing the best advice and the best planning for the clients that we're working with. And so we're a little different than most firms. We believe in a team approach. So we work with the biggest companies in the world as far as our fund companies. And then we have a full team of experts looking at tax, investment, insurance, and also estate planning needs. So we're not going to focus too much on that today. We're just talking strictly about young savers.
Perfect.
So we're going to move on here. So who do we help? So I help a variety of different people, anywhere from young savers that are starting out to people that are in the middle to more established investors looking at passing on generational wealth transfers and stuff like that. And so we're helping them really eliminating their debt when we're talking about young savers and creating their own personal net worth. And as you would know, being a realtor, it's very important that you have that personal net worth. If you ever want to start getting into real estate, getting into property,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
need to make sure that your debt ratio,
Oh, yes.
ratios are appropriate to be able to
Yes.
afford those things.
Well, and also keeping a good credit.
And the credit, yeah, exactly, right? So we don't want to get bogged down, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute here. So some of the key financial concepts that we're going to go over today are budgeting, managing the debt, and then of course creating that net worth and paying yourself first. So as I said, you're the CEO of the company, which is your company, you incorporated, and we want to make sure that you're paying yourself well. So the first thing that we're talking about here is the stop, drop, and roll. And we're assessing the situations and updating your budget. So I want to throw something out here really quickly. So for those of you that aren't working with a budget or would like a budget, I'm going to have my email address in the description with this video later. If you would like a copy of this monthly budget, just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you right away. It's totally fillable. If you want help going over it, looking at things where you can eliminate, or whatever you'd like to look at, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm always never too busy to see if I can help and get you guys on the right track. So the first thing that we need to look at when we're looking at a budget is the income. So of course, that's our income streams, our paychecks from whatever sources that we would have. Any money that's going to be coming into us, that's going to be our paycheck. From there, as we're funneling down, the very first thing that we want to focus on once we get paid is eliminating debt. And we're going to drill into that a little bit deeper. But it's really important that we get rid of debt and we're not carrying debt with high interest rates. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. After that, we want to pay ourselves. So if we had no debt, we would have more money to pay ourselves. So it's very important. Everyone loves getting a raise. So let's make sure that we're able to accomplish that for ourselves. And let's eliminate that debt so we can transfer that what we are paying on our debt into our own personal savings. From there, we're going to look at things like necessities. We want to make sure that we are able to keep food in our fridge, keep the lights on, pay our rent, pay our mortgage, things like that. And then we have our financial obligations. So these are things like our cell phones, you know, our TVs, our
Internet.
Netflix subscriptions, you know, all of the little things. Yeah, internet, you know, things that we could, I mean, in today's world, I think we need internet. We'd have to have that. I would say that's a necessity. But, you know, there are things like, you know, let's say Netflix, any other little, you know, random subscriptions that you would have. We need to consider, well, are they benefiting me in the long term, or am I even using them? You know, while gyms have been closed, well, what happens to the memberships, right? Are we still paying memberships? I'm not sure how that worked, right? So we need to look at some of those things. Are we using that gym membership even if we go back, right? So we need to really take a really tight look at our budget to make sure that we're able to, first of all, pay off our debt, pay ourselves, and start living the life that we want to live. And then at the end of that, now we have the spending money that we can just frivolously spend as we go through our day-to-day lives. Things like, you know, buying, fast food for lunch every day, or a coffee every morning, or going to the movies every weekend. Those are things that are really, they should be a bonus as to what we're, to our own plan, right? So it's very important that we focus on dropping the debt load, because it's amazing how quickly debt can stack up without us even knowing it. And oftentimes what we're seeing is, especially for young people's, the story is that, oh, I had this credit card and I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden my credit score is just absolutely terrible. And I can't get a loan. I can't, I can't do anything. And it's amazing when you look at the return, even for young people that are investing today, the returns that they're getting are never going to be as good as what the credit card companies are charging people for borrowing money. And oftentimes it's anywhere between 19 to, I've even seen it at 30% at times for people borrowing money.
I thought usually
and we're never going to outperform those rates.
Yeah, usually it's about 21, 22%.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be great to see those returns annually. And of course, 2019, we had some great returns in the market, but until that point, and obviously as we're going through the stage right now, you can imagine, not only did our investments get negative 20% as the market bottomed out on March 23rd, and of course it's been steadily returning since then, but of course we're also paying 21, 24% on our credit cards as well during that time period, with maybe money not coming in through that period. So we need to really focus on eliminating that debt load so that we don't get stuck in a hole that we can't get ourselves out of, in a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about debt management, I want to briefly talk about a strategy called debt stacking. So for people, young people especially, and really all people that are carrying any sort of a debt load, debt stacking is probably one of the most effective ways to pay down that debt quite quickly for young savers. So it's basically a 5-part process. So number one is you want to identify the liability, which would be the expense that you would have. So that would be your credit card bills, your car payments, if you have a line of credit, your student loans, anything like that. And you want to find whatever payment has the highest interest rate. This can be identified on the actual bill or statement for that liability. And basically what we want to do is we want to assess and we want to take a look at all of the other liabilities that we would have. So if we have a car payment, if we have a line of credit or whatever it is, what we want to do is switch all of the other payments over to the bare minimum that we're going to make on that payment. All of those minimums we're going to roll over onto the liability with the highest interest rate. In this example here on the screen, we're looking at the credit card at 19%. Yeah. And we're going to push all of the extra amounts over into that high liability. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to continue that until that is completely paid off. And we're going to make sure that we don't incur that same amount of debt in that liability again in the future, hopefully. And then once we've rolled off and we've paid off that credit card, for this example, then what we're going to do is we're going to take that entire chunk that we were putting on there and we're going to move it over onto the next payment. Now we've got a very large sum of money, hopefully, that we're being able to put onto the next payment, plus the minimum that we were making on there. And we're basically going to roll until all of our debts are paid off. So this can happen. It can be a very short period of time to really eliminate some serious debt for people. And it's very important that we focus on this. Ultimately, once we've eliminated all of our debt, we've come accustomed to saving and paying this amount of money. Now what is really important is for people to have the discipline to now roll those payments that they were making on their debts into their own savings. And we want to pay yourself now first, right? So now we want to put that money, and ultimately it could be, $1,500, whatever it is. Imagine paying yourself that every 2 weeks or every month instead of paying a credit card company or a bank or something like that, right? So you can imagine how quickly your savings will start to build up by using this simple strategy. So this is very effective. And it's something that I would recommend for a lot of young people to focus on even before they talk to a financial advisor. A lot of times, we want to help people, but it's tough to help people when they don't really have a lot of ability to, save money and start working towards their goals, right? So it's always a little bit of a better strategy if we can eliminate the debt. And then the next step would be, talk to your advisor and now start putting those
strategies
assets
towards
your goals. Yeah, exactly. Towards the things that you really want to have, right?
Okay.
So Albert Einstein, he really sort of coined it, and compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. So he who understands it earns it, and he who does not pays it. So for example, as I mentioned before, we have the credit cards at 19 to 20%, upwards of 30%. And then we also have our investment returns, which are obviously seldom that high. Especially if we're depending on what style of goal we're going. If we're wanting to purchase a major purchase in the next 2 years, well, chances are we're not going to be taking on a lot of risk for that. Although we do want to make sure that our money is invested and we're outperforming inflation, most likely we're going to get anywhere between 3 to 4, to maybe 5% in a conservative investment, where our credit card debt is, as I said, it's 19, 20%, right? So we're never going to outperform what we're paying for those credit cards. So it's much more effective to, instead of putting that little bit of money into your own bank account, small amount of savings, it's better just to say, you know what, I'm going to take those savings and I'm going to put them right onto that debt, eliminate that debt. Now I have a larger chunk of money that now I can allocate towards my own savings. You're going to be much farther ahead in the long term. So now we're going to get into the last part of the key financial concepts, which is rolling and creating the net worth. So now we're rolling over the savings that we have into our own personal net worth, and we're starting to create that net worth. So now that we're able to start purchasing things, we can purchase really anything we want. That would be a major financial goals. A lot of young people want to get into a house. And down payments are a big topic right now. And creating that down payment of 20%, is no easy task when we're looking at housing prices upwards of, anywhere between 500,000 to 800,000 to $1 million+ dollars, right? So it's really important, especially if we don't have help from our parents, to make sure that we're helping ourselves. And hopefully this helps people to sort of take advantage of that. So I have a question for everybody that's listening out there. And would you rather earn $1,000 per day for 30 days, or would you rather earn 1 cent per day that doubles each day for 30 days? If we think about this COVID experience, well, we've been in COVID for what, 2 months now or something like that? I've lost track of all time and day.
About, yes, 8 weeks, example, 8 weeks or so. Yeah,
let's say it's huge. Yeah, it's huge. So let's say we were in it for 30 days, which obviously it's been longer. Would you rather have the $30,000 after 30 days? Or would you say, well, I'd rather have the penny a day that doubles each day for 30 days? So what would you rather have, Margaret?
Well, I know the answer to this question, so I'm not going to give it away. But I think the key point is that it doubles every day.
Right. So having your own money creates a compounding effect as we have the growth of the markets, especially with the markets being in the state of where they're at. When we speak about opportunity in the markets, the opportunity is generated because as we look at the unit, which is what you're buying. So when you invest money into a market, you're actually purchasing something. Now, although it's not tangible, you can't hold it in your hand. You actually own a number of shares. So let's say $100 buys you X number of shares. Let's say you get 10 shares, and those shares were valued at $10. So when the market dips, what's happening is people think that they've lost money. In fact, they haven't actually lost anything because they haven't sold anything.
Right.
So the only thing that's happened is that the unit now, instead of it being worth $10, is only worth, let's say, $8. Or $5 or whatever it might be, right? So the important thing now is, okay, well, if the units are worth less money, we should really be focusing on buying more because we know the markets are always they're always constantly up and to the right. They're always outperforming year after year after year, and they're doing better and better. And although we're in a period of volatility right now, I still think if we look back at the long scheme of things over a 20, 30-year period, I don't think that this dip in the markets is really going to be that massive. I think it's just going to be a small blip on the radar, much as what has happened in the past before.
In the grand
the economy has recovered. We're still breathing. We're still living. The world hasn't ended. And even now, as we talk about COVID, we're starting to return to work and we're slowly starting to return back to our normal lives. And it really wasn't that long of a period. Now, where there'll be some economical fallback, I'm sure that there will be, but I'm very certain that we will recover and we will start to get back to a trend of which we were in previously. So let's get back to the question here, $1,000 a day or 1 penny per day that doubles each day. So if you picked 1 penny per day that doubles each day, you are absolutely right, and you're on the right track and thinking that way. So this is what it looks like over a period of 30 days. So if you can see, on the first day, we have a penny. On the second day, we have 2 pennies. On the third day, we have 4 pennies. Then we have 8. When we get down to, let's say, 21 days, we've already generated $10,000. Now, of course, we only have 9 days left, and we're still $10,000 or $20,000 less than the $30,000 that we would have if we took the $1,000. Now, it's really starting to jump here when we notice the effects of the compound growth. So it goes from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80. Now we're completely crushing that 30,000, and now we're starting to end up in the millions. And at the end of the 30 days, we actually end up at I'm going to round up significantly and call it $5.4 million.
Which is shocking, totally shocking.
And it's amazing to see, what would you rather have? So it's really the opportunity, right? And the opportunity of compound growth. And this is just doubling every day, right? So you can imagine, the investment return on this as well. On top of that, we would really be in some sweet territory there. So this is just an example of, creating that opportunistic mindset of looking at a situation, stopping, assessing, saying, okay, for myself and my wife, we have two vehicles. Well, we've taken off the insurance on one of our vehicles because we're not driving it, and we've redirected that towards savings because we know there's a lot of opportunity out there. We know that it's not going to last forever, and I want to make sure that I can jump on it when I can, because in the long term, it's really going to make a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm. It's the
So
time
paying
factor.
yourself first. One of the things that I want to talk about here is the TFSA rollover strategy. So once you're 18, you can have a tax-free savings account, which is a TFSA. Typically every year, the government gives us about $5,000 to $6,000 worth of room. If you're a little bit older, you're going to have room from previous years. But basically, if you're 18 today, you can start out with a TFSA. And I believe we have, I believe it was $6,000 that we have for this year that you can contribute. So the first thing that we want to do when we're looking at a TFSA strategy, and this is paying yourself first. You're the CEO of You Incorporated. You need to make sure that you're paying yourself. So we need to establish a zero in a TFSA account. So a zero is something like, let's say for this example, we're going to talk about $2,000. So what I mean by zero in $2,000 is I mean that we're never going to have less than $2,000 in our TFSA account. That is money that we can never touch. We need to be very disciplined and say, this is my emergency money. This is my opportunity money. If opportunity arises, you may dig into it. If an emergency arises, you may dig into it, but we need to focus after that on repaying ourselves back. It's a loan from ourselves at 0%, right? Mm. From there, what we want to do is put any monthly contributions that we're making. So after we've paid off all of our debt, we're taking that number. For this example, it's 15% of $30,000 income. So that's $375 a month that we're putting into our TFSA, right? Just in case we need access to the money, we want to have liquidity inside a tax-free savings account. You can pull out money at any time without any penalty, unlike an RRSP, where if you pull money out of that prematurely, you're taxed on that money, right? Yeah. So what we're going to do is put that $375 a month into our tax-free savings account. At the end of the year, we're going to roll over any amount that's inside the account above our zero. So for this example, that was the $2,000. So we're going to be rolling over $4,500 into our RRSP account. What that contribution to our RRSP is going to do is now it's going to lower our taxes that we paid throughout the year. So based on a 28% marginal tax rate, we're going to get a refund of $1,200, and we're basically going to put that refund back into our TFSA. And now that refund plus our zero is our new zero. So now we've created that $3,000 plus. That's basically going to be our new zero. We're going to continue on. Now what we've created from this is we're slowly working on topping up our TFSA, right? Each and every year we can only contribute a certain amount. From that point, we've established an RRSP, which is gearing towards our retirement savings so that we have money for the future. We can also utilize that money for young people to pull out for your first-time home buyers purchase.
That's right. Yep.
Right? So it's a very effective way of having that money sort of locked away from you, but still being able to access it for a bigger goal that you would have.
Right.
And then eventually we're going to max out our RSPs, we're going to max out our TFSAs, and we're going to have to start rolling money over into a non-registered account. We're not going to get into that into this video because that's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more of an established investor's outlook. But for now, I would say anybody that is 18 should absolutely have a TFSA. As long as the money is invested, I would recommend your zero is invested conservatively. You want to outperform inflation. And you really want to be focused on any of the bigger goals that you have. So creating that opportunity fund, creating that emergency fund, so that when opportunity arises or an emergency arises, you're prepared and you're able to pay this off. For an example, if you had an emergency fund and you did have some credit card debt going into this period, and let's say you had lost your job, well, you could say, hey, you know what, I can't make these credit card payments, but what I can do is I can pull money out of my emergency fund and drop that down to zero. Or lower your payments that you're making on it, right? So there's a lot of effective strategies that you can combine together so that you're able to really take full advantage of what's happening right now.
Perfect.
So the process that I generally take my clients through, for people that are interested, if anybody does want to have a conversation and start looking at their financial future, and sort of preparing themselves for any financial goals that they would have for themselves, we're really going to start at the bottom. So what I mean by that is everybody has goals. Everybody has milestones that they want to accomplish and things that they want to purchase, a house for many young savers. And they typically just see the tip of the iceberg. They see buying the property, they see living in the house, they see the car that they're going to drive and what they want to do there. But there is a mountain underneath that tip of the iceberg, and we have to start at the very bottom. And the very bottom is discovering and clarifying and finding out what's important to you, what your dreams are, what your goals are, what are some concerns that you would have moving forward. And we need to address those so that we're able to start creating a financial plan. From there, the next step is analyzing and exploring your options. So developing multiple different financial plans with different outcomes and seeing what is going to fit best into my lifestyle. What can I implement today that's realistic? And I think realistic is one of the bigger words here, to help me achieve the goals that I've set for myself. From that point, we typically develop and present a plan. So we would build the plans. We would present them back to whoever we were sitting down with. And at that point, they would agree to continue and say, wow, I absolutely love this plan. I cannot believe that I'm going to get everything that I want out of the life. And I just have to implement a plan, and start from the bottom. From there, we finalize the plan and we begin to implement it, and we start getting to work. So oftentimes, this can happen in as little as 1 to 3 meetings, depending on the complexity of the situations. And really just putting that plan in place and saying, hey, this is what you have to do, step-by-step process. You can see exactly where you need to go and exactly what you need to go to get there. And then from that point, we basically just, we service the plan, and we respond to any changes that happen within your own personal circumstances. Just like what we've done with all of our clients that are going through COVID right now, is take a moment, stop, breathe, reassess, and let's address any of your financial concerns, any opportunity that's out there, and ultimately that will lead to your financial success in achieving all of your financial goals. So hopefully this was helpful. If anybody has any questions, as I said, I'm going to include my email in there, and also my Facebook as well. And if you'd like to check that out or ask me any questions, like I said, I'm always available to see if I can help anybody.
Oh, I love it. Some of the key takeaway that I have learned is simple concept, even just the mental mindset of stop, drop, and roll. Debt stacking, I think that's a very strategic note to learn. I mean, I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to go through that, but I can see how it can be very traumatizing and really sets somebody back if you don't know how to manage your debt properly. And just rolling over from the TFSA to RSP, and then you get the refund, and then you put it back to TFSA. I think these are just super strategies for young savers and something to start with. They're not hard to learn, and it just takes discipline.
Yeah, and that's it. And there's so much information that's out there for people that it's almost too much information.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps to, I find that a lot of people, especially young people, they sort of tend to go everywhere and they gather all of this information. But the really important thing is implementation and actually using that information and putting a plan in place for yourself, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that you're optimizing your situation. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people can do is don't just learn, but also do and focus on doing. And it's okay to make mistakes and overcome hurdles. That's what growth is about, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is, I always found that it's one thing to learn by yourself, and it's great, but having a coach will help you just stay on track, and you will accelerate that much faster. And you may call yourself a financial planner, but I would more like to think you as a financial coach, because you are coaching people from how they start to how they implement, how they have the accountability, and being able to see, because of your expertise and your wealth of experience, you can actually point out opportunities that a young saver may not even know because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly right. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know. And there's so many opportunities. And it's no different between somebody that's starting out and somebody that is very established and has been in the investment game or in the markets for, 30 years. They're still making a lot of the same mistakes that young savers are making. And you said it perfectly. You don't know what you don't know. It never hurts to have a look, get a second opinion, and just really make sure that everything is moving accordingly towards whatever you desire, because it's about what you want and creating an effective plan to be able to get you the things that you really desire.
Thank you, Will. I think this has been super informative. I have made some keynotes, and I'm going to include your email for everybody who's watching. If you have any question, send Will a note. He's super guy, and he's happy and delighted for the opportunity to help you. We're going to stay tuned because we will have another video coming out to help somebody that's in a different stage of life. And yeah, look forward to collaborating with you again. Thank you, Will. It's been phenomenal. I appreciate it. And this is Margaret, Dexter Realty. And the guest I have, expert today, is Will Tuijtel with IG Wealth. See you next time.
Thank you, Margaret.